Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Preparing for Your Child's Annual IEP Meeting. My name is Norma Francullo, and my co-presenter is Denise Rekem. You can see her right there. And we have our guest speaker today. Our name is Gershon-Halpern. And Robin is a licensed professional counselor and educational consultant. She has a private practice in Short Hills, New Jersey, and has over 25 years of experience working with families with special needs. Her contact information will be on the slide, the last slide of the presentation, and we're really happy to have her today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to turn off our cameras, and so you can focus on the PowerPoint. Okay, so today's agenda is as follows. The first is I'm going to go over the role of each participant at the IEP meeting. Robin will go through how to prepare emotionally for your child's IEP meeting. And Denise will discuss skills that are needed to be collaborative and productive, to have a collaborative and productive meeting, and some practical tips when preparing for your meeting as well. So the role of each participant, as you can see from the picture there are a lot of people that can be at your child's IEP meeting. But one of the most important people there are you. You're the key member of the IEP team, and you need to know the questions to ask to facilitate a conversation, and we'll go more in depth into that later in our presentation. But you, again, you are there not just to listen, but to participate and to be an active and not passive participant. You have a lot of great information about your child, and you know best what your child needs. But first you need to understand your child's disability. And there is so much information out there that you can Google, you can attend conferences, you can do webinars like you're doing today. There are lots of articles and books out there. So please, take time out, and it is a lot of work, but it will help you in the end to understand your child's disability. You need to know what's going on in the classroom every day. You need to know what's being required for homework. And you must know how your child learns. So teachers are also part of the IEP team. You'll typically have a general education teacher as well as a special education teacher. And they'll provide information to the team as to what's going on in your child's classroom. And classroom observations are really pivotal in helping the team develop the IEP team. Just as your observation, parents, of your child, of what's going on at home and in the community, teachers have lots of information based on their observations in the classroom that they can share. So we also have the caseworker or case manager at the IEP meeting. They can run the meeting. They serve as the go-to person for everyone. They serve as liaison between the parent and teachers and specialists. They help in drafting the IEP that you receive, and they will finalize it after the meeting is over. They will serve as the contact person for you to voice concerns during the school year. And again, there can be many specialists at the table depending on your child's needs. Typically, there's an occupational therapist. There could be a social worker, psychologist, a physical therapist, a speech and language pathologist, as well as a behaviorist. So the IEP is a document. It's not a process. The document is a legal document that is binding, and it is meant to be individualized. Think of it as your child's business plan to success for that school year. And your child is the I in the IEP. It's a little corny, but it's true. Your child is the I in the IEP. So now we're going to move on to preparing emotionally for the IEP meeting, and Robin will take it from here.
Thank you for having me here today as a guest speaker, and it's a pleasure to be here. So let's start with building relationships with your child's IEP team. This is an extremely important factor that you have to do, and it might be one of the best ways to advocate for your child. So how do we do this? We have to be prepared to collaborate. We have to enlist their help in explaining things that you don't understand. So this is a long process, and no matter how much you learn and read, there might always be times where you still might have questions. It's okay to ask the team during the meeting, you know, I didn't understand that, can you please explain it? Your authenticity is always valued, and you're working together, so they will not have a problem explaining things to you. Come prepared with your own observational log book of your child, because nobody knows your child better than you do. Come prepared with extra copies of outside professional evaluations so that the team members can incorporate this into their own findings. So remember, the school will have their own set of findings, and you might have your own. Now, it's just to make sure you know, it's not required that you do any outside testing, but if you decide to do so, then bring it so that it can all be worked on together. Be open-minded, diplomatic, and authentic with your emotions as possible. And this is extremely, extremely important. They need to know that you're working with them. We'll go over emotions later in the next few slides. Have someone accompany you to the meeting for support. While it's quite common that both parents are present at the meeting, sometimes an extra friend, a family member, a therapist can provide a little extra support. It's always nice to have that extra support. But it is important to inform the team ahead of time that you will be bringing a guest. Maintain positive communication. You're going to hear this throughout this presentation from all of us. This collaboration will be going on for years, so it's very important. And as your child goes from school to school, you're going to have new teams as they go from, let's say, elementary school to middle school. So you have to be able to maintain this positive communication. Manage your expectations about and goals about outcomes of the meeting. So first and foremost, you must stay calm and positive. It could be helpful to have a conversation about expectations before the meeting with friends, with family members, with an outside therapist. Very important to center yourself, maybe breathe, short meditation, yoga, whatever you do that works for you to be calm and positive. Maintain an active role in the meeting. Remember, you are an equal partner of the team. You are not an observer. Educate yourself about your child's disability so that you can be his or her best advocate. If need be, learn what you can do to supplement what the school is required to provide for your child. So an example of this is, let's say your child is in need of speech therapy. The school says, we will give your child one group lesson and one individual session. So you feel that your child can possibly benefit from another individual session. Your insurance is on board to pay for it, and that's terrific. But the most important thing here is to have the outside therapist collaborate with the school therapist, and that they can come up with a plan together and support each other's goals, and your child will do well. Okay. Educate yourself about your child's disability. Read as much as you can about your child's diagnosis. Read as much as you can about interventions that can assist your child both in school and at home. And these could be very different, but complementary. Learn about how you and the school can work together to collaborate to help your child reach his or her potential. So an example would be of communication would be to send a daily log back and forth from home to school. And that would be communicating how the child did that day at school and how they did at home the night before. This can mean anything from providing positive support. If your child did something really well in school, the teacher can send that back to you. Then you as the parent can give a reward, a compliment, and you can reinforce this behavior and then that should increase the likelihood that this good behavior will happen again and generalize into other areas of this child's life. Perhaps the child didn't do well in school, and so it's also important that you know this and that you can talk to your child about this, perhaps give a consequence, and same process. You know, this way you're communicating and you're reinforcing or giving a consequence. Work creatively with the school for your child's success. Sometimes you need to think a little bit out of the box. For example, you can volunteer in your child's classroom or assist in the classroom with a party. You can then observe your child in his own school setting. This is invaluable information for you because, as we all know, our child is different at home than they are at school. I'm sure you've all been to meetings where the teacher says, your child didn't speak at all, in the classroom, and you say, are you kidding? My child doesn't stop talking when they get home. So it's very important to see them in the classroom setting so that you can see what they're seeing. Understand home versus school responsibilities. Parents and schools want the best for their children. Sometimes you might feel a little different if things are not going well, but it's very important to realize that these are a set of professionals who are educated in their specialty areas, and they are here, they're there at the school to make sure that your child succeeds. Okay, schools have to provide appropriate services, but not the best. At times, there isn't a perfect fit to meet your child's needs. And this is, we talked about this a little bit earlier, that you can certainly supplement something if you feel that they can benefit from more, but always work in collaboration with the school. Parents and schools should try to understand each other's perspectives. Understand that the school must provide academic and support services to help your child make meaningful progress. And again, to repeat, understand that if the school is providing what they need to provide by law, and you would like to give extra support, you can do that. A very important example of this is if your child has anxiety. So in the IEP, it could be written that your child will get a counseling session once a week at school. However, you have to understand that it is very hard for a child to perhaps go through a very emotional session, third period, and then fourth period, pull themselves together to take a math test. So sometimes if there are emotional issues or behavioral issues, sometimes it's best to take care of some of that on your own with outside support with a therapist or behaviorist. Always monitor your child's progress closely if the program needs to be adjusted. So it's important to know that meetings with the case managers, teachers, specialists can be held at any time. An IEP meeting can be requested by you also at any time, not just once a year. Okay, maintaining your emotions. This is always the tough one. Maintain your emotions at the meeting, as you may experience a multitude of them. The following are some emotions that you may feel, and I'm sure you have others that you've felt too. So you can be angry, frustrated, you can have anxiety and fear, you can feel defeated, you can be overwhelmed and confused, worried and sad, and even offended. Perhaps things are not going exactly the way you wanted them to. Or, on the flip side, you can be very appreciative, hopeful, optimistic, and happy, because more times than not, the meetings are going well and your child's needs are being met. What happens if you cry? And this is known to happen because it's a very emotional time. It's about your child. It's about their success. And I think what's important to understand that whatever feelings you're displaying, and if you cry, if it's an authentic emotion, it's okay. No one's going to fault you for feeling your feelings. And people will understand. I've been at meetings. I've accompanied parents to meetings, and I've seen parents cry, and I've seen the child study team say to them, it's okay, we're working together. They actually, at times I've seen them get very supportive of the parent when the parent displays that type of emotion. And I'm not suggesting you do it, but it just if it happens. Okay, getting the support you need for yourself and your family. So this might be the #1 thing. joining support groups for parents, and joining support groups for siblings. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about siblings. While no parent intends for this to happen, at times that sibling feels a little left out, and parents are very busy, and it's important that the sibling has a place to express their feelings, see that they're not alone, have their feelings validated, and maybe learn a little bit about what their sibling is going through, what the diagnosis is. At support groups, you can they're very, very powerful. They can give you resources. You can have a tremendous amount of support, and just to not feel that you're in it by yourself. There's one quote that I just want to say from one of the parents that's been in my support group and is currently, and she says that this is the only place where I can talk about this and people get it and I don't feel so alone. It's a very powerful experience, support groups. Okay, next, take very good care of yourself. Whatever that means for you, a little time off, shopping, yoga, go in your room and shut the door and no one can come in. So it's very important because the more centered you are, usually you respond better to your children and your family. Accept help from family and friends. It's very important to explain what is going on with the special needs child, especially to grandparents, because they're going to need a lot of information and they're going to need a lot of help in knowing how to help you and how to interact with the child. So the more you can explain, they will understand, and you can then please accept help from them. It's very important to have that support all around. Hire caregivers. Use respite care. Another very important piece here is to protect your marriage. Make sure that you're continuing to go out and to communicate and work together and share responsibilities and try to keep the needs of your children, and especially the special needs child, separate. Socialize with other family members, with or without children with special needs. A lot of times, special needs families feel very isolated and become very isolated. They feel that they can't go out because they're not sure what their special needs child will do. I think that a lot of families are very understanding, and if they know what's going on, and you set up the support that's needed for a successful social experience, they're happy about it. Again, don't feel isolated, and you can spend special time with other families, and you don't have to be with other families with special needs children, but try not to be isolated. Get individual counseling for yourself or any family member to support yourself with your own emotions. So it's just, very important to understand that a person who has a special needs child goes through a lot of stress and a lot of emotions, and any person can benefit from having a place to talk, let their feelings out, and to come for help with strategies and to cope the best of their ability.
Thank you so much, Robin. That was really great.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to practical tips on how to have a collaborative and productive meeting, and Denise is going to take it from here.
Hi. So, the first thing I want to talk about is communication. It's really, really important to have a good communication with the school, with your child's teacher especially. It's always good practice, both for your special needs child as well as for your typically developing child, to reach out to your child's teacher at the beginning of the year. Send an email, introduce yourself, introduce your child. Let the teacher know any issues your child may have, any things that work, don't work, any kind of interventions. Just sort of a little bit of an introduction for the teacher so that the teacher can be more successful working with the child. You also want to keep in touch with the teacher and the child study team throughout the year. You do not have to save up all of your concerns and issues until the IEP meeting. In fact, I would suggest that you don't save up all of your concerns and issues for the IEP meeting, because they may grow by then and may get harder to deal with. It's critical also to let the school know if there are certain things that are happening in the home that they would not be aware of. For instance, if it's taking you and your child collaborative 4 hours to do an assignment that, is meant to be done in a half an hour, if the child comes in with the assignment completed, the teacher really has no way of knowing that there was any problem. It's important for them to know because they need to help you and work on a way to give your child the kind of homework that they can manage and to work on a way for the child to be successful, not to have this kind of negative experience associated with homework and home. So you want to really just be proactive, be in touch, and work collaboratively throughout the year, not just right before, and during the IEP meeting. Next slide. It's really important to keep yourself organized. There is just a lot of paper involved in this process, and you want to be able to have all of the information organized and at your fingertips if you need to refer to things. One suggestion that we have for you is to keep several 3-ring binders. You can put one that contains your child's report cards, standardized test results, and maybe homeworks that are relevant. One that contains copies of the child's IEPs and progress reports. You can also include in this one any emails that you have with the school, the case manager, the teacher that speak to any of the IEP services or any kind of changes or accommodations that are going to happen in the classroom. Anything that's relevant to that you could keep in the second binder. And then the third binder to contain copies of all of the school and outside evaluations, as well as any letters that are written by psychologists, psychiatrists, outside, OT, PT, speech therapists, anyone who's working with the child that's provided information to the school about the child's needs, you can keep in the third binder. It's a great idea to keep all of these binders in, a plastic bin. And that way, if you get more documents that you need to add and you don't have time to do it in the moment, you can just throw the documents into the plastic bin, and then it's all organized in one place, and then later on you can come back and add those documents to their binders. So prior to the annual IEP meeting, one thing we suggest is keep a journal each year from the first day of school. You don't have to write in it every day, of course, but you can have a place where you can jot down notes of things that are issues, problems, successes, when an intervention is starting, when you let the school know about something, anything that, you may want to refer back to during the IEP meeting in order to discuss things that were tried during the year. Of course, as I discussed earlier in communication, if there's really a serious issue, you don't want to just keep it in the journal. You want to send an email to the school. It's great to have things in writing, even if you spoke to the teacher about something and the teacher told you something. It's great to just follow up with an email about that so that there's no misunderstandings and everyone's on the same page. So also, we suggest that you make copies of homework assignments or tests, quizzes, writing assignments, anything that's relevant to how the child is doing, to the progress, to the issues that you see that you want to be able to discuss. You can have samples of these documents to bring to the meeting. This is the data. It's the data and your observations that you're going to be able to bring to the team when discussing the child. It's also a really good idea, if you can, to email your parental concerns to the case manager prior to the meeting. This way they can become more prepared and get some answers for you if need be from other people that may not be in the meeting. And they can come prepared to discuss your concerns instead of just at the meeting you say your concerns and then they tell you, oh, we have to get back to you. This parental concern statement is also something that you can ask and should ask to be added to the IEP document itself, either in the section they can copy paste it into the IEP or add it at the end as an amendment or annex it to the IEP so that it's part of the IEP. What should you bring to the meeting? So you can bring the binders if there's information in the binders that you want to be able to have at the meeting. Definitely samples of your child's work that we spoke about before. If you want to show the team, progress or lack of progress in a writing sample or in a math test or anything that you're concerned about, you can bring these samples so that the team can look at them and discuss the issues. It's great to bring the journal so that if there's any issue about when something happened or what happened, you have your own notes to refer to that were made contemporaneously of what happened during the year. We really advise putting together a focus sheet, 1 or 2 pieces of paper that just summarize, your goals for the meeting, your parental concerns, maybe like in bullet points, any changes or suggestions to the IEP, and also a list of what's working so that you can share that with the team, what the successes are of, the people that are working with the child. As Robin discussed earlier, these meetings can be really emotional. We're talking about your child, their struggles. There can be disagreements and what to do about those struggles. And having what you want to accomplish and what your concerns are on a piece of paper in front of you at the meeting, it takes some of that stress away, and then you're not going to forget to mention something that you wanted to mention and then feel bad about that later. Here you have everything in front of you and you can just make sure you touch on all of the things that you want to say. What questions should you ask? You can ask any question you want at the meeting. You should definitely ask enough questions to the evaluators about any evaluations they perform so that you understand the information. The evaluations are being used to decide what services and supports and program the child's going to receive. And since you're an important part of the team, you really need to understand that information. And it's not always that easy to understand. So you want to ask enough questions to ensure that you feel comfortable with all of the information and what the information is suggesting the needs of the child are. You want to discuss the goals and objectives. What do they mean by the goals and objectives? What are they looking at, and do you understand that, and is everyone on the same page? The goals and objectives are going to be turned into progress reports, how the child's progressing on these goals. And if they're not measurable, if you don't understand what they're really trying to achieve, then the progress reports are really not going to be that helpful to you. So you really want to spend enough time on the goals and objectives. Make sure also that all of your concerns and the child's needs are reflected in those goals, because the goals drive the services. There have to be services for the child in order for them to learn the skills they need to attain these goals. Talk about what your child's school day is going to look like. Are they being pulled out for related services? When are they being pulled out? How often are they being pulled out? What are they missing? How, if they are missing instruction, how is that instruction going to be made up and taught to them, and when and by whom? Lots of questions, and this is really, this is what the experience of your child is going to be like in school. So it's important for you to understand what that's going to look like and if that's going to work for your child. You want to talk about what kind of interventions are available for the child, what's available in the school, and what's available in general, because the IEP is supposed to provide the child with the services and supports to meet their individual needs, not just whatever happens to be in the school building. So if the school doesn't have certain services, how are they going to get those services for your child? When? Is it going to be provided in school or after school? But you want to make sure you talk about all of those things. You can ask the classroom teacher what the goals the teacher has for the class as a whole, not just the IEP goals, but just the general goals for every student in the class and how those general goals are going to be impacted and work with the child's own IEP goals. And then last but certainly not least, you want to ask about communication between what's going on at school and home. And especially when there are things that the child's learning that you can be reinforcing at home and generalizing those skills, you need to be clear with the team and the teacher on how you're going to learn what you need to know in order to be able to help your child at home reinforce what they're being taught in the classroom.
Thank you, Denise. So as we come close to the end of the webinar, we want to leave you with some important thought. Everyone has a voice at the table, and we all must be child-focused, and everyone's opinions must be heard. And being adversarial is generally not the most effective way to get what you want. You will all not always agree, but in the end, you're going to need to come to some type of an agreement. And as a parent who has walked through this journey, I have always loved this quote, and it's from Parenting a Struggling Reader by Susan Hall and Louisa Moats. And it states, develop a language of persuasion rather than a language of positional battle. This really really helped me through the journey that I went through. And it was about, a good 10 years. It truly is important to be able to come in and speak, to everyone and not be adversarial. Just as you would not come into an office meeting with your colleagues and speak to your boss or the colleagues that you work with in an adversarial way, especially if you're trying to get a point across. Or if you're working on a committee at school, you're all going to be able to, you're going to use language of persuasion rather than language of positional battle. It's a great quote that I refer to often before I walked into the meeting. So in the end, you are your child's champion, and being a champion means being an advocate and a promoter, a speaker, a supporter for your child, and you're going to model for your child and throughout this journey. And your child at some point in time, whether it be in middle school, high school, or after they graduate high school and whatever choice they make in their post secondary world decision, they will become you. They will become an advocate, and they will need to learn to self-advocate, and you're the best person to learn that from. And as you can see on the slide, the triangle is a parent, child, and teacher, and together, all of you are part of that puzzle, and it equals success. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you carving out some time during your day to be with us, and we really hope you got a lot out of the presentation. Here is Denise and my contact information and Robin's contact information, and we hope to see you at our next webinar. We have 2 more this March. Have a great day, everyone.